Hello and welcome to One Up Pod. I'm Becky, your host for this month, and I'm joined by Bash.
Hello.
Andy.
Hello.
And Chip.
Hello.
This month, we're discussing the gothic superhero splendour of Batman Arkham Asylum.
Do you really think you can win? Oh, a little bad.
But first, how are we all? How is everyone doing? What have we been up to? Bash.
I'm grand. Yeah, I'm grand.
What have you been playing?
Well, I've been playing about 10 games because I cannot stick to one. I like to have several on the go. It's too much to concentrate on just one, but I think the game that has probably consumed me the most the last month has been Detroit Become Human. And I would be remiss to not mention that, even though I know we're planning potentially a future episode on Quantic Dream, but Jesus Christ, it's a fucking trash game that's amazing at the same time.
Yep.
I love trash games that are also amazing.
It's so unsubtle. It has some really problematic elements with the female character in particular. She has double the amount of possible deaths of the two main male characters.
Oh.
Also, her storyline, because I've done the platinum, so I've played it through its entirety 3 times in a row in quick succession. But her storyline makes no real difference to the rest of the game. I think she's literally just there for empathy. All of her chapters, they just don't relate until the very end where their stories converge. Her chapters don't relate to what anyone else is doing. It's just really typical in a way. I think it's meant to be profound, but I think it's just been done. I feel like it was unintentional that she's ended up being just like a
token almost.
Yeah, it's just, why is the woman character got to be the one, and with a child with her as well, got to be the one that's, there for the empathy. She is the one that has all the really truly grotesque stuff happen to her, and yeah, 40 deaths, 40 possible deaths. I think it is. It's like
Jesus
a lot.
Christ. That is a lot of death.
Somewhere out there in the universe, David Cage knows that we're talking about his game, and he just puts on a little record player and it plays Celebrate for about 3 hours and then goes and has his little cry wank in the shower. That's how I feel about his games.
I mean,
just one long cry
What I will
wank.
say is that aside from Marcus being the most boring revolutionary activist, whatever, that I've ever encountered in anything, I do love the partnership or potential partnership of Hank and Connor. It's my sweet baby angel Connor. I'm very invested in their story, and I hated that I did the very good ending first, and then the very bad ending is like them two hating each other, and Hank kills Connor, and then Hank kills himself, and it's all really depressing and grim, and yeah.
No.
Oh, the dark timeline.
Yeah, I cried at the happy timeline and I cried at the sad timeline because they were both very different but emotional experiences for me, for their story.
So you've been on quite the journey since we last recorded.
Yeah, you could say that.
And have you finished BioShock?
I have finished BioShock, yes. It was fucking shit. It wasn't shit. It was very good.
Waste of fucking time.
We got so many angry tweets about she hasn't even finished it. Oh my god, I can't believe you did an episode on it. No, we didn't really.
She can read the Twitter account. She knows.
But it was good for our engagement.
It was. Chip, what have you been up to?
I have been playing the latest, last Tomb Raider trilogy. Because Shadow of the Tomb Raider was free on PSN last month before, whatever it was. And I wanted to play those games again anyway, because I realised I played the first 2 when they came out and never played the third one. So this was a really great opportunity for me to finally do that. Realised I had the second game on my PlayStation already, and the first one was on sale in the store for £1. So I ended up playing that entire trilogy for £1, which is great. I'll play anything for £1.
You heard it here first, folks.
Anything for £1, Chip. That's what they call me. So I've been making my way through those. I'm on Shadow right now. I'm about, halfway through that. And yeah, it's been a time. It's been a really fun time playing those games again and finding out about the new one, because I think, well, if we do, I don't want to say too much, because if we end up doing a Tomb Raider episode, I'm just going to end up repeating myself at some point. But I've really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the story that this Lara goes through from her origin to being this badass, murderous warrior, Tomb Raiding expert. And I'm looking forward to finishing that up very soon.
Nice. I love that trilogy so much. You've actually inspired me to start playing it again.
Finally, I inspired someone to do something positive.
Yeah, we'll
Took
chuck it
long
up
enough.
as a win for Chip. Yeah, let's go with that.
Thank you. I'm keeping that.
And Andy, what have you been up to?
I've been playing a lot of different stuff, but I think my main focus is Valheim right now. The Viking survival simulator thing. It's like the biggest thing on Steam right now. And I'm no good at it. I'll just say that up front. I've only just worked out how to build second floors. I died like about 100 times in embarrassing ways.
I am really enjoying your stories that you tell us of all the ways you've died. The campfire one, that was very
yeah, when I
entertaining.
built a roof over my campfire and then suffocated on the smoke. Because I didn't know that's how it worked in this game.
How dare they use actual, like, real life experience to inform
Yeah,
the
it's
mechanics.
set in like Viking purgatory. I didn't think like smoke would be a problem there.
They didn't breathe back then, so...
Yeah, I thought the beard would like filter out some of the smoke. And I've had about 10 different trees fall on my head whilst chopping them down.
You do
It's like a
realise you
fucking
have
Looney
to stand,
Tune.
like, the other side of the tree to where you're...
They make their own mind up which way they're going.
Okay, we'll blame the trees.
Sometimes they like bounce off another tree and fall back towards you. It's like, no, why?
And this is why it sold like 4 million units in a month or something.
Yeah. I found a giant like today. I did not like that. I turned around immediately and ran away.
I think that's a fair response.
And it followed me and its little friends destroyed my cabin.
Oh, I was just about to say, what if it was a friendly giant?
No, it was a bad giant. Before I started recording the podcast, I had to fix my cabin, which took ages. I've seen some people building like fucking the Tower of Sauron and stuff like that in the game, and I'm proud of my little shack that's got like 2 floors on it now, with no roof, because I don't know how to make roofs properly.
Yeah, it's a work in progress, you know.
Yeah, it's a
Today,
fixer-upper.
a roof. Next year, maybe a door. You never know.
No, I'm not doing doors. Last time I built a door, I accidentally like barricaded myself in the house and I couldn't get out because I died by the campfire, and then I was like spawned inside the house and I couldn't get back to my stuff, so I couldn't knock the wall down. This world is like done. I'm just gonna leave and start another one. I'm never letting people watch me play this. Fucking hell.
Oh no, but it'd be so entertaining.
Get
Yeah,
Chip to buy it, and I might play it with him.
Chip.
I do need to buy it. I do want to play it. Every day you come up with a new story for how you've died in a very comical fashion, and it just makes me want to play the game more. So that is a purchase that's going to happen soon.
Excellent. I really look forward to the shenanigans that will eventually ensue if your Sea of Thieves streams or anything to go by.
Oh
What
god.
do you mean? We did really well on those.
It's a very interesting definition of really well. You've
The
put together
VOD's
for
gone
yourselves.
now, so no one can check.
I'm going to do that right now. Be right back.
Segue? I don't know. Becky, how about you? How are you? What have you been doing?
I am good, thank you. I have just moved house, which I may have mentioned before elsewhere. So I haven't been playing much, but I've been sort of starting houses on The Sims, forgetting that I built them, and then building new families. So there's a lot of people running around in The Sims right now that I should probably look after for a bit. But yeah, so it's been very chill gaming, and also finished playing Spider-Man, which will be our next episode. Spoilers.
Ooh.
Exciting. So yeah, so finished off playing that, and yeah, it's been a very nice chill time for gaming, which is good. But now I've got my brand new setup, there will be more games to be had, so that's exciting too.
Woo!
Very exciting. Oh, I didn't mean to sound that sarcastic, sorry.
And that is how that segment's going to end.
Yeah, excellent.
Segue!
Cool. So the game. So this month, as I mentioned, we are talking about Batman Arkham Asylum, which was released back in 2009 and developed by... You're right there, Chip. Are you feeling your age?
I'm so old.
The passage of time.
Developed by Rocksteady, who are favourites of this podcast. We like Rocksteady. As you've probably guessed, you play as Batman if you haven't played the game. And the game starts with you escorting Joker into Arkham Asylum as your prisoner. But oh no, he escapes. Who could have thought? And the inmates quite literally take over the asylum, so the rest of the game is you running around as Batman, encountering the Rogues Gallery, and trying to take Arkham Island back from Joker, who's got his own dastardly plans, as he always does.
The scoundrel.
The fiend. So to kick off, I want to hear everyone's best I'm Batman voice, because I know we can't beat Kevin Conroy, but we should try.
I thought you were joking about this.
No, I was not joking about this. You should know me well enough by now. I never joke about Batman voices.
Yeah, I feel like Chip has an unfair advantage here.
I am Batman. It's true. Yeah.
He is Batman.
That's why you never see him in the same place. Yeah.
Cosplay Batman.
Yeah. It's the same thing.
Bring this down to reality.
Same thing. Just because the costume was made out of foam, it doesn't make me any less of a Batman.
No, I think it definitely does.
It would if you got shot.
Yeah, so Chip, after all this build-up, you're going to have to go first.
Ah, shit. Okay, what do you want to say?
I feel like he should go last, so, just in case he's good.
No, but if he's good, we'll get him to edit out the rest of us, and it can just be Chip saying I'm Batman 4 times.
Hey, I said I was Batman. I never said I was a good Batman.
So, yeah, just I'm Batman. The classic line, channel your inner Christian Bale.
Okay, get
George
me some
Clooney.
people on set to yell at. Okay, here we go. I'm Batman!
Ooh,
That's terrible.
Thank you.
I like it. I don't think I will get that gravelly when I do mine. I'm Batman. There we go.
Nice. I like it. Yeah.
Andy.
Oh, God. I'm Batman.
Do you know what a Batman is?
Yes, I've played the games. I know.
I think that would actually be terrifying, though.
Yeah, imagine him swooping down from a rooftop and I'm Batman. Don't leave me alone, please.
Go on, Sasha. Bring it home.
I'm Batman.
Oh, I like it. It's whispery. And a bit Lego Batman.
And a bit jazz as well.
Yeah, a bit jazz.
Yeah, I imagined you doing jazz hands as you did that.
Oh, well, that's good, because that is what I was doing.
Jazz Batman.
Jazz Batman. I'm here for it. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to Andy, because he has put together a very extensive, by the sounds of it, history of Batman in gaming and why Arkham Asylum is important in the timeline. So, Andy, take it away in the jazz Batman style.
I'm not doing it in the jazz Batman style.
Oh, you should do it in the jazz Batman style, but okay.
That's not my gimmick.
I'll do it in the normal.
I'm not stealing off Sasha. Yeah, it's not that extensive. That's just, I don't want people getting disappointed. Okay. Right, well, Batman's first video game outing was in 1986 on Amstrad Computers, MSX, and the Sinclair ZX Spectrum. And, okay, I'm just going to ask you guys, if you were trying to picture a Batman game in 1986, what would it look like to you?
Like a stick man with, 2 pointy bits on top of his head and maybe a line to represent a cape.
What do you think the fucking 1980s looked like?
I don't know. I wasn't in them very long.
I was going to say boxy and maybe side scroller style.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the same.
Well, weirdly enough, no, you were all wrong, especially Chip, the fucking idiot. It was a isometric puzzle game, and it involved a short, stocky Batman who would enter a screen and he had to make his way from one end to the other, avoiding what could only really be described as angry shapes.
Angry shapes.
There were no recognisable Batman villains. There were no human muggers or anything. It was blobs bouncing around and mouths with legs. So
sounds like a Trump rally.
Basically, maybe. Even Batman kind of looked short and squat and just a, I don't even know how to describe it, a Funko Pop that had been melted.
Great.
And somehow this is still one of the best reviewed Batman games ever.
Really?
I guess you have to take context into account. At this point in time, Batman media was almost non-existent. So people were just starved for Batman. So they were just willing to like swallow this spoonful of cold diarrhea and pretend it was chocolate pudding.
Oh my word.
You have
Like
such
a Trump rally.
Oh, God.
Like a Trump rally.
Well, if we had any Republicans after the last episode, I think they're probably
why?
gone now.
Yeah,
You just
why?
hate listening to us at this point.
They're a bunch of bleeding heart liberals.
We are.
Just
So-
like Batman.
Yeah, that famous... Yeah, I think Batman's probably a Republican. Let's not go into that.
Yeah, that feels like a very thorny area of discussion.
Let's go somewhere else with
Let's just
that.
gloss over that.
So, yeah, after that, there was Batman the Caped Crusader, which came out on Amiga, Amstrad CPC, Apple II, Commodore 64, MS-DOS computers, the ZX Spectrum. And that actually looked more like a Batman game. It had humans and, like, recognisable Batman locations like street and sewer. And it was still shit, though. Like, it had a nice little comic book panel gimmick, but that only really worked if you had an expensive computer at the time, and I had a ZX Spectrum, so it looked like absolute shit.
But at least it wasn't Angry Blobs.
It was a step up, but yeah. After that, there was 1989 hit, and obviously that's when Tim Burton's Batman the movie came out.
Yes.
And there were 2 games based on that came out. There was a really bad one that came out on Amiga, Amstrad, Atari, Commodore 64, MS-DOS, MSX, ZX Spectrum. Absolute shite, not worth talking about. And then there's the one that came out on the Nintendo Entertainment System, which is one of the best games ever made.
Agreed.
It's also
Hard
hard
agree.
as fuck. It's
Yeah.
other than the game we're talking about today, that's probably the best Batman game.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think so.
High praise.
After that, there was a long line of absolute shit related to Batman. There's
Noticing a theme here.
yeah, Batman's just not had a good time, basically. There's a lot of movie tie-ins. Batman Returns alone got 8 different games based on it, on different systems. It's amazing the industry could cope with producing this many games based on one thing rather than just porting them to different systems. But there was also a really weird point-and-click game based on Batman Returns, which I tried a week ago, and it's absolute trash.
We're one good game, right? That's the
So
tally
far,
so
yeah.
far. Yeah, okay.
And we're 10 years in?
We're about 5 years in, and it's trash, so mostly trash, but one great game. And there was obviously licenses for Batman the Animated Series and Batman Beyond, but they had a lot of mixed results. They either looked the part, but they moved at the speed of erosion, or they moved like a video game should, but they looked like they'd been drawn by somebody's forehead. They did not look like the iconic designs that you kind of associate with Batman the Animated Series. So you just kind of had to, if you had an N64, you were fucked basically.
Oh,
They all
but in all
looked really
fairness, everything on the N64 looked kind of bad.
Yeah. No
The-
offense to N64 lovers.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
I
I loved
time.
the N64, but when 3D gaming first, when it looks dodge. Let's be
Yeah.
honest, it looks
They're
dodge.
just blocks with that moved like people almost. So yeah, there's also Batman racing games, because everybody's favourite part about Batman is his ability to beat people in a race. There's Batman educational games, because
What? Hang on. What?
Batman educational games
What do they
Okay.
involve?
like solving puzzles and spelling, and
Here's to count how many parents you've got.
Oh,
it's a very easy one to solve for him. And there was also a Batman game that was basically Pac-Man, because that when you think of Batman, you think Pac-Man, because the names are very similar.
I frequently get them mixed up.
He also loves to eat ghosts, Batman. So it's a little known thing. It's covered in more in the 1980s, but he did love to eat ghosts. So basically, yeah, it was a really bad time until Lego Batman came out. And then, finally, since the first time since 1989, we had a good Batman game. And it was
Yeah,
Lego.
we did.
And nobody was expecting it. And that hit just a little bit before, it was about a year and a half before Arkham Asylum dropped. If we counted every Batman game that came out up until Arkham Asylum hit, there were 38 Batman games, and 2 of them were good.
oh, that is not a good ratio.
Yeah.
It's not, but then that 18 months of these games, that was 2 very perfect Batman games.
Yeah.
I'm very much carrying still like my little picket every now and again, going to go down to wherever they make Lego games and just be like, bring out the trilogy again. Because you can't get the earlier 2 on like the newest generations of console, and it upsets me greatly. So
I really like the idea of you just outside the offices, the one person with a picket sign like, release the trilogy! And then
She's
she's
back
again.
She's back,
God damn
yeah,
it.
she's back.
TT Games,
Close the
isn't it,
blinds.
I think.
Or maybe we could start the campaign here on this podcast. Like, just every now and again, drop it in at the end of an episode. Like, bring back the trilogy. And, yeah.
Hashtag Lego Batman trilogy. Release the Lego Batman trilogy cut.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh god, no, let's not. I can't.
We'll get the Snyder fans involved.
No, please,
they're
no.
pretty productive.
No.
Yeah, it's developed by Traveller's Tales, so TT Games.
Yeah, so it's harass them.
Yeah, and Warner Brothers. It's obviously published by Warner Brothers, so...
Yeah,
Let's
used to being
let's not
harassed.
use the word harass. Let's gently nudge and be
Bother
nice.
them.
Andy, don't make me cut another one of your threats out of the podcast.
I'm not the one making the threats here. I am just
Technically, Sasha isn't making
Guiding.
a threat. She's just brandishing
I'm
a picket.
picketing. I'm protesting.
Peacefully.
Yeah,
Peacefully protesting.
peacefully loitering.
It's just you and your guitar singing outside their offices.
Before
every
anyone
Sunday.
says, I know you can get the Lego Batman trilogy on Steam, I don't want it on Steam. I want it on the PlayStation.
I love our preemptive commenters.
Did you know you could get it on Steam?
Is that what you've
Yes.
got written on the back of your picket sign?
I know it's on Steam.
Yes.
I didn't play Batman Arkham Asylum until probably a good 4 or 5 years until after it came out. So I definitely missed the hype when it first landed. So I wanted to ask you guys, what was it like playing it for the first time for you guys? And, your first impressions of the game, lasting impressions of the game.
I remember driving home from work. It will have been Friday, and I went to Big Tesco near
Not Big
my house
Tesco.
at the Big Tesco, and so I literally picked it up on release day, went home and started playing it on Friday night, and I had finished it by Sunday morning.
Oh, wow.
And started it again on that Sunday. So I think for me, there's a lot of... Batman was the first comic book character I ever read. The first Batman comics were the first comics I ever read. The Batman animated series, I grew up on that. And on the 1989 Tim Burton film. I grew up on that. And even the 60s Batman, I feel like I've loved Batman my entire life, And... as a kid, it's that whole, oh, he's really cool and moody and he saves the day. And then as you get older, it's that thing of, he kind of can be whatever people read in him, although I do think it's a really good litmus test for what people do read in him as a character, whether he's, spirit of Gotham and that figure that fights for those that can't fight for themselves, or whether he's... a bit more of an arsehole. But the point being is that, I still own more Batman comics than anything else. I love, the Lego Batman games, and I have a lot of Batman stuff. And when this came out, it was that thing of, I think Andy kind of said, before that, the games before that had largely just been trash. And it's just so exciting to pick this up. Just from the cover, I remember being this looks like Batman. And then you start the game, and it feels like Batman. I didn't even notice time going by when I was playing it. And I'm sure we're going to touch on it in a bit. It isn't a long game. But still, I think it was the first game in a long time that I'd put it on Friday evening, and within 24 hours had finished it and was going back in to start again.
Yeah, it is that kind of game, isn't it, that you just get lost in, immediately. I know that when I replayed it for the podcast, I think I got through the first half of the game really, really quick and was like, oh, I'm here, I should probably slow down, because it's just that kind of propulsive, compels you along style game.
So when it came out, I was actually sort of gallivanting around the world, that kind of post-uni travels kind of thing. So I missed it when it was released, and I got back to the country in 2010, and I dug my 360 out of my mum's loft, and within 2 days it got the red ring. And I was really looking forward because
no.
there was all these video games I hadn't
God.
played in the years that I'd been like out of the country. So I had like a big list of things I wanted to do. So as soon as I got a job and was earning money, the first thing I did was bought a new 360 because I was an Xbox man at that time.
Xbox dickhead.
Exactly. Yes, I was. And I signed up to this video game rental place. I don't know, it was kind of old school in a way. It's kind of that, that halfway stage between Blockbusters and Netflix where you could rent movies online and they send you the actual disc. I signed up to one of those for a gaming thing I think it was called Boomerang.
Yeah,
I don't know if
I've
they're
used
still around.
Boomerang.
I think they are.
I think
Yeah.
I've got. Well, I'm not going to say what I've got of theirs still.
Oh, no, it's best not. We don't want to get
In case
a
one of their
lawsuit on the
employees is
second
listening.
episode.
I don't have anything of yours. It's fine.
So my first chance to get to play it was when I rented it through that. I don't think I played it in an entire weekend, but just absolutely blew my mind. I think it looks so good for the time as well. Even when I went back and played it, because I played it last summer, I went back and played Asylum and City. So I didn't feel the need to play it again for the podcast because it was kind of fresh in my brain. But even looking back in now, it's like, compare that to something like the Ghostbusters remaster, which came out, I think, the same year or around about the same time. They're like chalk and cheese in the way they look. Arkham Asylum is so well presented. And when every sort of generation of games, you're like, well, the games are never going to look better than this. This is amazing. I really felt that with Arkham Asylum, just the way, and we're going to get into this more, but the design of it. And that opening when you're carrying the Joker through and you're just walking with him and you get introduced to like Croc and all the characters that you're going to meet as you go around the asylum. It blew my mind. It was so different and it felt so meaty and the combat was so great and everything about it just really grabbed me from the opening. And nothing has changed. Like going back and playing it now after 12 years? We're so old. It still feels like a really great game in terms of the mechanics and stuff like that, and it felt just as good playing it now as it did first time around.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the things I noticed. It was just how fresh it still feels. Like, even though obviously in City the mechanics are developed even further, and so many games have replicated those mechanics moving forward, it still feels like brand new when you're playing it, which for a game that, as you say, is however many years old.
Yeah, we can stop saying that.
A bit like we were saying with BioShock last time, like it still feels up to date and contemporary.
Yes.
And and still really absorbing in a way that a lot of games on replay aren't. Andy, what about you?
I think Arkham was the first time in a long time I'd actually really connected with Batman. I was like obviously old enough to remember when Batman 1989 came out and how that just took over pop culture entirely. Like, because before that, Batman wasn't really a thing for about 20 years. There was an absence of Batman in pop culture, and it just hit like a meteorite. And ever since then, I've always liked Batman, but Arkham Asylum brought it all back in full force. The entire trilogy sort of does this, but it was definitely establishing Asylum. It feels like the ultimate Batman. Not ultimate as in the best, but it's the best summation of Batman.
Yeah, I would agree with
brings together all these different elements that make Batman great in different media. Like the voice cast from the animated series. Yeah, design choices, there's bits of Tim Burton and David McKean and even Joel Schumacher in places. Just cribbing from all these different places. The score has a bit of Danny Elfman and a bit of a Hans Zimmer, and no Seal, but nobody's perfect. And the story brings together all these different elements from Batman's long history, and it's not afraid to get weird. A lot of Batman movies try and keep things grounded and realistic, but Batman Arkham Asylum knows that Batman exists in a world where there's the Justice League and there's the New Gods, and things can get a bit weird, so it embraces more outlandish sci-fi concepts. So basically everything I love about Batman, Arkham Asylum has. So it was the best Batman game I've ever played. Easily.
So the design and the aesthetic of it, we've obviously mentioned already, but I think for me, I've always been a fan of the gothic side of Batman more than anything else. The Tim Burton 89 Batman is my favourite. I grew up watching that one, and I think Asylum, like you said, it kind of captures that kind of gothic macabre element, but also the Joel Schumacher kind of neon and the occasional like 60s silliness as well, because I haven't really read much of the Batman comics, but I've always followed Batman, like the animated series and in the films. And I think like that's part of the reason why it does feel like such a good Batman game, because there's so much attention to detail across the design and the aesthetic of the game to really make it feel like you're on Arkham Island, you're in Gotham.
Yeah, it's my favourite iteration of Batman as well, across all the comics, all the films, all the TV shows. Like, for me, this is the perfect Batman, because it takes all the best bits from those media and kind of just, like, crams them together with this awesome gameplay mechanics, and throw in the cast as well, which is the best Batman cast of, there's no argument for me that it's just the best Batman cast. Yeah. And it just takes all these, and that's definitely the recipe for it. It's not just a great game, like it's a great designed game, it's a great written game, it's a great looking game, and it's a great game, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
Ah, yes, a game.
A game.
I'm a big fan of good games. And about the opening, like Chip mentioned it earlier, like that is a great way of bringing people into that world. You're actually playing it. It's not like a cutscene. It's like a Half-Life did it many moons ago, doing the introduction that you move through, and you're moving through the environment and you're experiencing it around you, and you get a say in how much of that environment you're taking in. You can like overhear conversations and note like the background details, and it like tells you all this stuff about like the Blackgate prison fire and like how they're moving all these criminals in. All these little story elements are being weaved into the intro.
Yes.
And it's also like guiding you through these environments that you're going to re-experience again in a different context. Because it took me a while to realise, like when you're walking through, that you're walking through the that first main like area where you can do your stealth work.
Yes.
But you're approaching it in a different way before like the criminals take over and kind of change the geography of the whole location. And like you're taking it all in without even realising you're taking it in.
Yeah, that's a really good point actually. The fact that like the game sort of flips it on you after that introduction, so you're sort of nice and settled, and yes, I'm Batman, I'm the one in control, and then you have obviously the Joker escaping and the inmates escaping, and the sort of the whole style of the game kind of shifts into that more kind of chaotic, less rigid framework that you have throughout the rest of the game, really.
There's so many good parts in the intro, like the weapon scan, where like they're doing the scan of everybody and Batman sets off the alarms.
Yeah.
Like, so you know Batman's not fucking around. He's prepared for whatever Joker's gonna do. He's not an idiot. And like in the intro of Killer Croc, like you see the architecture like straining to like lift him up, like in the elevator. So you know he means business as well.
Oh yeah, he's terrifying from the get-go. Like, obviously we have his whole level, which we'll get into later, but like just seeing him and how monstrous and huge he is, just straight away you're like, oh fuck, I don't want to fight him later.
And I'd forgotten about that bit in the game as well, that you see him briefly and there's kind of like a crash, and it properly made me jump. I was like, oh, well, this is going to prepare me for meeting you later on.
One of the things, you've already said it, Becky especially, but the architecture itself is so exaggerated in the most beautiful and also just extra gothic way.
It is really extra.
and even when you consider that you spend most of the game like indoors. It's still, again, it's another one of those games, kind of like BioShock, where it's very much set in its own sense of place. I don't think you have to have like consumed that much Batman media to sort of have that picture in your mind anyway of what a Batman environment would look like, even though it's Arkham Asylum. And, you know, the having that grappling and gliding around, it feels perfectly where it should be in terms of look and style.
Yeah.
For the game and for Batman and the rogues gallery that's presented there. Certainly one of the things that stands out more and more every time you play it is because obviously the game takes place over one night, which I think contributes to how quick it is.
Yes, I would agree.
One of the things that when you are like, you know, flapping around as Batman is...
That's what it's famous for. It's flapping around.
Best way to describe it.
It's like gliding serenely and then there's just Sasha's Batman like flapping like a bird.
Flapping.
pretty much.
Look at my cape. Look at my fancy cape.
Dramatic entrance, swoosh.
Basically,
What's the point?
that's exactly how I play it. That's like in my head.
What's the point in having a nice cape if you're not going to show it off?
Well, it's
Exactly. What I was going to say is you do get the sense of time moving forward in the game, because at the start it's Arkham Asylum, and then, you know, like the Joker's henchmen and the inmates start taking over, and everything starts to look increasingly more beaten up, and, you know, you get that sense of that it has been taken over. It doesn't look like starts to look less and less like a medical facility. And then Poison Ivy takes over the island. I know, again, we'll get into it, but it's more, I like how the aesthetic changes as you progress through the game, from all the gothic architecture and the it's kind of dour, but it does look like a bit of a dodgy one, but it does look like a medical facility. And as you're going through, like, it falls apart increasingly so.
Yeah.
But I think that gives you a good sense of time in it as well. Like, it moves forward.
Yeah, there's the like the visitor center. Throughout the game, you're seeing like Joker's henchmen working on the visitor center, like setting up for the finale. So like you've always got a sense of like things are progressing on the island whilst you're doing your work. Things are going on around you. It's not just all you like everything's going on.
Yeah, I really like as well how the attention to detail on Batman's costume as well.
Yes.
Oh, yes,
The fact that
yes.
all the way through, like, it just gets slightly more, like, worn and torn. The cape, like, gets holes in it.
It's harder to flap.
Yeah, harder to flap. No aero resistance. That's always struck me as a really cool detail in the game. The fact that by the end of it, he looks like he's been through the wars throughout the night. And it's a detail you wouldn't necessarily miss if it wasn't there. But it does just add to that kind of, as you say, that passage of time and that sense of progression that, you know, this guy hasn't been able to rest for very long. He's just sort of lurching from one fight to the next. And I also love that there's a random Batcave on Arkham Asylum. That's one of my favourite details. Arkham Island has a Batcave, and he's just
he's always prepared.
He's just like, well,
Yeah, Batman flaps everywhere, you know.
But it's just the way he's like, yeah, I just set it up just in case, as if he would predict like this exact situation happening. And it's like, yeah, just.
Well, isn't
just
that
go to my Batcave.
the prime Batman argument? That Batman can face anyone and defeat anything.
As long as he's
As
as
long
long
as
as he's got
had
prep time.
Yeah.
As long as he's got a Batcave
It's the
nearby,
most
he'll be
tedious
all right.
fucking counter argument in any debate.
Oh, it is 100%. But that, yeah, it in spite of
It's
how
not inaccurate.
ridiculous it seems, it also makes sense for the character that he would have created like a Batcave on the off chance that there's like some sort of catastrophic breakout.
But do you not wonder
Yeah.
if there's like Batcaves all the way through the world now? Like there's one near Metropolis, for example.
Oh, definitely.
I
He's definitely got
I
Batcaves.
hope
Just like-
there is.
There's a whole network of just random like super tech caves that no one ever goes in.
Absolutely.
Unless Batman happens to be like under a crisis going on.
When I moved into this house, I checked. That was the first thing I checked for. Was like, oh, are there any Batcaves
Is
in
there
here?
a Batcave?
Just want to know. Yeah.
If you see a Batmobile leaving the garage, like, oh god, I didn't know I was sharing a garage with Batman. Fucking hell.
So obviously one of the things we've mentioned already about the game is the strength of the mechanics, both sort of like the stealth and the combat. And we've already talked about how the map like shifts and changes depending on what kind of scenario Batman finds himself in. So before we get into like the nitty gritty of it, I really want to talk about the way that Batman opens doors.
I keep forgetting you were going to bring this up, and every time you say it, I get more
But it's
confused.
so like dull. Like every other movement in the game is like really swoopy and
What? Because he doesn't flap
Well, I
through
don't
them?
know. It's just not very dramatic, is he?
You'd think
like,
he would flap
Yeah.
through a door.
I would expect.
Would you?
You know, like
Would
you know,
you?
in the Two Towers when Aragorn like opens the door dramatically and it's like, "I'm here." I always expect that of Batman, and he just sort of turns the handle and walks through the door.
Steps back a little bit
Yeah.
so he didn't bump into it.
Yeah,
I don't know what you want him to do.
I just expect it to be more dramatic. It's Batman.
I want him to kick a fucking door down.
Yeah,
No, he's being
I'm
stealthy
like-
though, isn't
yeah,
he?
I was
Time is of the
yeah.
essence.
Isn't like one of Batman's main gimmicks is that he can enter and exit rooms completely undetected? I feel like if he's just dramatically kicking down
Kicking the
doors,
fucking door down.
I'm here.
Do you not think seeing
I'm here to flap!
Do you not think seeing a man dressed as a bat walking through a door isn't exactly low key in the first place, though? But I don't know.
No, I've done that many times.
All right, cosplay Batman.
just Batman will do fine,
Cosplay
thank you.
Batman.
Batman dickhead.
I don't know. I just like every time I see that little cut animation, it just makes me laugh. It's just like so ordinary. And I just never expect Batman to be ordinary.
At the very least, you think he'd like open it a crack and slip through. He just opens it all the way and walks in.
Yeah, he's big and chunky.
It's not even that stealthy.
No, it's just
He hasn't lubed himself up so he can just slip through the door.
you-
And even if he did that, that's not very dramatic still, is it? If he's just like...
yeah, but it's still,
but at least
sneaky.
It fits the character, like it fits the stealthy argument that you were making that you shouldn't kick the door down.
Yeah,
This isn't
I
even
am not on board with this.
this isn't even stealthy. This is just him opening a door like I would.
yeah. I don't
I
want
feel
Batman
like-
to open a door like an ordinary person.
I feel like I don't understand how he can open the door any differently.
Open it a crack and slip
Yeah.
through so nobody sees the door's been opened, because someone's going to notice the door's been opened, like there'll be a draft or something.
Just
Ooh,
the
what
head
was that?
like, oh, it's got a bit breezy.
Yeah, that's a bit chilly. What was that?
So you want
Lads,
him
I
to
think
actually kick
Batman's
the door
here.
in so they don't notice him? Is that
No,
what you're
I'm
saying?
not.
Is this your argument for
he's
the
either
door
got to
thing?
kick the door down or he's got to sneak in. He can't do it halfway. He can't just open a door like a man,
Yeah.
like he's going into the fucking Asda or something.
But he is a man.
No, he's a Batman.
No, he's the Batman. He's the Batman. He's supposed to be larger than
Yeah,
life.
but he's
supposed
not
to be
the
a myth.
doorman.
But it's just
No, a doorman
so
would-
dull. Everything else in
This
the game.
conversation is dull.
I don't understand your confusion
Yeah.
about the door.
I'm really glad Andy's with me on this because it's.
That's not necessarily a good thing for your argument.
No,
but
I'm not saying it is. I'm just like glad I'm not on my own. That someone
There's
else.
a definite divide in
There
the
is.
pod
There
on
is.
this. On one side are me and Sasha, who are like, Batman goes through doors, we're okay with this. And then there's you guys, who maybe need some therapy. I don't know, but I'm not sure
I mean, I'm not
what
saying I
is
don't
happening
need
with
therapy.
the door.
I'm just saying
No, I agree.
Batman
I
should
need
open the
therapy.
doors differently.
I just expect the animation to be a bit more Batman-y.
I would
Yeah,
love
so we won
Chip,
that argument,
for
I
you
think.
to
Yeah.
Becky?
like snippet this and send it to Rocksteady, to the developers of this game, and just ask them what their opinion is, and
I would love
Tell
to
me
know.
if they've had this
remake-
feedback
they need-
before.
Like,
is
I
this-
They need to patch that in, like a better door
haven't.
animation.
I can tell you they haven't.
I bet they have. I bet so.
No,
I bet someone else has
No.
thought Batman opened doors weird.
No, but I thought the argument is that he doesn't open doors weird because he opens them
No,
so
but
he
ordinary.
opens them
it's
weird
weird for
for
Batman,
Batman,
to do
yeah.
it normally.
It's normal for
Is
us.
it though?
It's weird.
So yeah,
It's
so
weird to be
about
normal.
stealth. Segue.
Yeah, stealth. Segway.
I've lost it now.
So yeah, stealth.
Stealth. Gargoyles. Go.
Why did you put it like that?
I don't know.
Are they in the same context?
Yeah. Well, you stealth using the gargoyles.
You do.
I mean, I do anyway.
That's true. Do you think when they built Arkham Asylum, they were like, right, we're just going to put these gargoyles up here in case anyone needs to hide in the shadows for a bit?
Well, gargoyles are
Probably.
traditionally outside, aren't they? So I do question like the design of like random gargoyles like in a
Do
medical.
you think this is why Arkham
facility.
Asylum didn't really work out?
I think Amadeus Arkham was like incredibly extra though.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
And of course, it was originally Arkham Manor, wasn't it? So it wasn't actually. It wasn't originally an asylum. It
Yeah,
started out as just
He
where
just
this.
built a normal house and they thought this looks kind of like a crazy person's place. So I'm going.
Here we go.
Why not?
Yeah, I just think like I mean I love the gargoyles. Like my favorite moments in the games are where you can stealth around the environment to take out the henchmen. I love doing that. It just makes me
Yeah.
laugh. Like in the botanical gardens, it makes sense because like that's the outside in. But like yeah, just it's when you're in the medical facility, where you before you go off into like the surgery and X-ray and stuff, and there's all these like beds lying around, and there's just Batman on a gargoyle like sup.
Stop looking up.
Yeah, please don't look up.
I'm a gigantic man on a gargoyle.
the stealth mechanic is great, and in completely unusually for me, I do very much stealth as much as I possibly can. I say that, but the game we'll be talking about next month is, I guess I do stealth as much as possible in that too, although it riffs a lot on this. But like, I think one of the things that always made me giggle, which it's not quite on the same level as the doors, I get it, but when he obviously strings up the henchmen, like, they can go a long time without fucking noticing. Like,
yeah,
it's one of my favourite things about it is you can take out practically an entire area through stealth, because they start to realise a little bit, but I just feel like in real life, surely if someone gets strung up from a gargoyle and their head has hit it or whatever, the noise of that, like, wouldn't you be alerted to that? I mean, obviously not, but it is a really strange... And the fact that you can just jump between gargoyles if you get spotted, and eventually they go, oh, well, I guess he's gone.
Yeah, don't know where he's gone now. Could he possibly be...
I felt the draft from the door. He's definitely gone.
Well, he opened it weird, though. Why would he just walk through the door?
No, we're not getting back on that.
But no, I think it's in... the archive section of Arkham Manor when you're doing that bit, and there's the two floors. So you've got the rails, like the ironwork balconies around the side of the room, and then you've got the gargoyles above them. And like, you think, like, they're just gonna be like hanging out like a foot above your head. Like, surely they'd spot them like walking towards, like, oh, there's a random guy just, oh no, it's Fred. What are you doing there, Fred? Like, but they just sort of carry on. And
well, I mean, you say that, but there is the fear mechanic in the stealth. Like,
that is
the
true.
more you fuck with them, the more jittery they get, and the more like they're likely to like panic and like fire in a random direction or stuff.
Yeah, that is true. I suppose like it's like the initial like dangling henchman.
Yeah, you need to get to that point first, but eventually they do start to get worried that you're somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, the Batman Begins game sort of introduced that mechanic to begin with, like, which is one of the only good things that game did. And like, because obviously Batman Begins is all about fear, but Arkham Asylum found a way to like make it work more organically, so it felt like you were in more control of like building the fear, and you could detect the heartbeats and know which guys are the most panicky, who are probably the easiest to pick off. So like, it helped you strategize your approach a lot more. So I really, really like that whole approach to the stealth. Like, makes you feel like your actions have a bit more impact rather than just like knocking people out and that's it.
Yeah, definitely.
And in all fairness, I think with with henchmen, they don't tend to pick the brightest sparks in the drawer. That's not the right saying, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So
we love
not the sharpest.
A lot of electricity in my drawers.
Not the sharpest sandwich at the picnic. Yeah.
So you can always forgive the henchmen in a way for being a bit dumb. They're very much brawn over brains.
I can relate.
And in the later games, like, the AI does get a bit smarter with, like the different methods they use to sort of, they shoot down the inside gargoyles because they're like, that shouldn't be inside. We're going to shoot that down. And I like the way you can combine the gadgets with taking them down as well. Like, you can disrupt their guns so they can't fire, and then that gives you a few seconds to kind of take guys out as well. So I think it was I know we're not really talking about the other games, but in terms of progression, I like the way they kind of built upon that mechanic as the games went on.
Yeah, it laid a really good foundation as a mechanic, and same with the combat mechanics as well. They obviously become more refined in the later games, and also the combat mechanics, they obviously get developed further in City, and I guess in Night, although I haven't played that much of Night, but in City especially, they sort of refine it. But I love the simplicity of the combat in Arkham Asylum.
Oh! Before we do the combat, I've got one more thing to say about the stealth.
Oh yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
I really need to talk about Batman's knees.
Here we go again.
Get a cup of coffee for a bit. Yeah. Well, they're doing doors and knees.
Like, you look at how he crawls around everywhere. He's like just crouched on his knees, and he's not going slow. He's still going at a decent speed on his knees, crouched down, and like, he goes through vents like that as well. It's like, fucking hell, man! What is wrong with you? Just crawl on your hands and knees. Nobody's there. You're in a vent.
And you're wearing like a
I'm
big
sorry, but I
protective
feel like
suit.
if he crawled on his hands and knees, the argument you have over the doors would be the exact same. Like, how weird would that look?
There'd be
like,
a lot
less
Man
weird.
on all fours.
No, that would look. Okay, you can crawl like prawn on his belly or something. He's got just not. Don't do it on your knees, Christ. How's he like? If he had to sneak up on someone, they'd be alerted to his presence straight away because his knees would sound like a bag of crisps being crushed by a brick.
Maybe Bruce Wayne has had knee replacements though. Maybe that's the secret. Like,
He'd need a fuckload of knee replacements. He must
Yeah.
have like a bat cave full of them.
No, look, he can do 1,000,000 squats.
Yeah.
His muscles are well trained for being in that position for a long time. Like, it's believable. It's Batman. He does loads of squats, so he's fine. He can be in that
I
vent
feel like
all
that's
day.
just beneficial to his
but
ass.
what about the cartilage in his knees? Like, that gets worn away.
He's doing that a lot. He's doing it a lot over the course of a night, and he must have been doing it a lot beforehand.
And he's also getting shot and beaten up and bitten and thrown off buildings and flapping around. Like, his job is quite hazardous.
I am concerned about all of his body parts, but I'm just saying he needs to take it easy
Hang
on
on.
his knees. Because, fuck me.
It's not like some sort of 70-year-old, like, with arthritis. He's Batman.
He's going to be
He
a
must have
70-year-old with
I bet
arthritis.
he's got-
Yeah.
I bet his knees are like as bad as a 70-year-old after that night.
There's no way that Bruce Wayne does not develop arthritis after everything he does, especially on his knees.
Then he'll open a door weirdly.
Anyway,
Well,
segue.
On that note,
Segue!
Onto the other burden on Batman's body.
Combat!
Boom.
That was actually a good
That
segue.
was really smooth. Well done, everyone.
What is happening to us?
We're professional strems, not strems, pods.
We were.
Yep, there we are.
we're
That's
back.
more like it.
Cool.
Sorry.
Yes, so the combat mechanics. So I love them. I'm a button masher, and I feel like this game rewards the button masher for not necessarily being so precise.
Absolutely. Yeah. It makes it look good, even if you're absolutely devoid of skill.
Yes, which I'm pretty close to that when it comes to the combat stuff. I was trying to do one of the challenges where you have to do all the different combos and try and use different gadgets and stuff, and I think I scored like 1 variety bonus because I threw a batarang by accident. So that pretty much sums up my combat experience. I didn't even hit a henchman with it either. It kind of like glanced off the side of the wall by his head, so
Oh well.
wasn't very
you tried.
successful. An attempt was made.
the combat in this is very well suited to my freeform style of gameplay. Just
I mean,
relate.
it is called free flow combat, so yeah, it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
pretty close.
I love learning all the different combinations of moves and like getting the as high a combo as I can with them. This all feeds very much into like my kind of hyperfixation that I can get. It's so much fun. I even like how you can swoosh the cape as like to confuse them.
Yeah, I love that
Like-
one. That's my favourite one. Like, I'm just going to flap at you and now you are confused.
I go, oh, I got a bit of wind in my eyes. Oh,
I breathe!
Just watch how I go through this door. It will confuse you greatly.
my eyes are watering.
Well, I was almost going to disagree with you slightly there, Becky, when you said about the button mashing, but I guess the beauty of this is like, oh no, I'm going to use the freeform. You can freeform it to your own style,
Yes.
in that, like, I really like the counters and using all the different combos,
Yeah.
like... we were talking earlier about like what blew your mind when you first played it, and like when you get into that real like you hit like the 60 combo or something when you've got loads of goons around you,
Yeah.
and just using all the different like the counters and the gadgets and everything all in unison, and it just looks like amazing. It's some of the best fight scenes I think I've seen in video games, just because of that system, and it's so basic in a way. Like you've got a counter button, and then you can do all these things to block, and then different enemies require different tactics and blocks and stuff like that, and you can just link it all together in this seamless kind of free-form flow. And yeah, I love that you can fix that style to your style as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My highest combo was 15.
That's good. That's a good combo.
Oh,
Yeah, not
Sasha's.
60.
Part of the combat that like I appreciate is how its lineage goes back to Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time, and then on from that it was Assassin's Creed. The way it approached attacking people, like multiple targets. Like before that, you'd have, if you had like a side-scrolling game like Double Dragon or something, you could only hit one person and like someone else could come behind you and just beat the crap out of you. Whereas like Prince of Persia, it introduced the ability to like move between targets. Like after one hit, you could shift focus and hit somebody else. It was kind of written up because it's an old game. The system wasn't perfect. It was very clunky. But like Assassin's Creed came along and that like made it a lot more reflexive. Like you didn't have to target. You could just move your controller to strike in the right direction. But it was still a little slow and wasn't quite as fluid as Arkham's combat. Like it was allowed to be a bit more unrealistic, kind of like untethered from being like believable. So like it just moves at such a beautiful fluid pace and offers so much variety in how you attack, and like the flow from target to target is just seamless. It's just perfect. Like they took a good idea and like they've just made it their own based on, you can tell that by how many games have copied like Arkham Asylum specifically, like Marvel Spider-Man and the Shadow of Mordor games. And none of those games have actually really innovated that much from the basic idea of the free flow combat, because it's just so good you can't really change it. They hit the perfect final form basically. You can add stuff, but you can't make that system better.
Yeah, I think the only way you can kind of not improve on it, but if you can fit it to the character. I mean, we're going to get into this when we talk about Spider-Man next month, but if you kind of like, Batman's combat system is great and it works for Batman, and you know, these other games, especially Spider-Man, they make that system work for that character, and I think that's the only time it kind of feels a little bit different, but it definitely feels like it's been improved in that sense. It's not just a carbon copy.
Yeah, I mean, they changed like the animation styles and stuff to like make it feel more natural, but the meat and potato mechanics are very much in place, the same thing. It's just they've modified the presentation to feel natural for the characters that you're covering.
Yeah, it's that idea of the foundation again. So obviously we have a lot of the combat just in general as you're wandering around Arkham. You get set up on at various points. But also we have the boss battles. So at various points throughout the game, I think the first one's Bane, isn't it? Who you encounter. And then you have Bane, Killer Croc. Well, we're not really counting him as a boss battle, are we? But
no, we'll talk about him somewhere else.
Poison Ivy. Who else have we got?
The Titans in general. Like I think you fight a couple of Titans before you get to Bane, or maybe like you fight one Titan just to introduce you to how it works, and then you get more Titans later on.
Yeah.
And the Bane battle is very much like a Titan battle.
Yes. Yeah.
Like they've got that very rigid kind of boss battle structure for those kind of characters.
Yeah, so we had a question on Twitter actually from at Liam the Mason, who said, do you think the boss battles get a bad rap because the rest of the game is really well done, or are they just not very good? So I'm throwing that out to the gang.
I just don't think they're very good. The Poison Ivy, but the Poison Ivy one is good.
Yeah,
but
I really like the Poison Ivy one.
I don't like the rest of the boss battles. They're repetitive, especially the Joker one at the end just doesn't match, like doesn't fit the character. It just feels like they kind of forced the Joker into that template, and like it's just not very inspiring when you consider how many other things the game does so well. The combat, the boss battles are way too copy and paste for me. Other than Poison Ivy, that one was actually really inventive.
Yeah, and I really like the Poison Ivy one as well because it's like you have so many different elements to deal with. You have like fighting henchmen, but also you've got the vines that come out the ground, like she's shooting things at you. There's the shield, so there's a lot going on. Whereas with Bane, you're right. It's just throw a batarang, wait for him to slow down, and we'll go again. And it's not very interesting compared with the rest of the combat in the game.
Yeah, no, I can see that. Possibly this is where I look possibly through rose-tinted glasses, so to speak, because I do just love the game. Just generally, they're repetitive of the boss battles, but then so are a lot of games, especially Metroidvania type games, which this obviously is. At least I find when you get like a boss battle that can be a bit repetitive. And I think the other thing you kind of said is there aren't actually that many in this when you think about it, because some of the other interactions with some of the other rogues, they're not really boss battles. They're just way more interesting ways of dealing with that particular character. I do think the final battle with Joker was a bit of a letdown, but the rest of it sort of still fit for me. And I think with the repetitive nature, it helps me formulate like how to do it, if that makes sense. Like, as in, I don't think any of them hugely outstayed their welcome in terms of being boss battles. Like, you know, is it like about 3 hits with each one? Yeah. Generally speaking, 3 rounds or whatever you want to call it. So I just found I got into my rhythm with it.
Yeah, I think I can see both sides, because I think for me it suits me having a system to conform to. So, okay, this is how I deal with this character, and this character is similar to that character. So, you know, I just go about the same process. But I think because the combat and the general sort of mechanics in the rest of the game are so great, it just feels like a bit of a step back compared to how revolutionary the rest of the game feels. I think is probably where I'm coming from, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like the sequel, I think the sequels did a much better, well, Arkham City especially did a much better job of like tailoring each boss encounter to that character, rather than just like repeating the same formula. But then like one of the only nice things I can really say about Arkham Origins is every boss battle felt unique. So like it kept you on your toes, which is what I really want from. That's like, I mean, personally, that's what I want from a boss battle. I need to like feel like I'm coming into like over my head sort of thing, and have to overcome the odds.
Yeah.
And eventually with the Titan battles, I did get into a rhythm, but it meant I disengaged from like the moment. I was just kind of on autopilot, which wasn't great for me.
What about you, Chip?
I think honestly it's never really been a problem for me. Until we got this question in, I wasn't really aware that there was a kind of people that didn't like the boss battles. For me, there's nothing particularly stand out about them, which in a way, like, I think there's pros and cons to that, and there's no kind of iconic boss battle in that, maybe with the exception of the Poison Ivy one. But also I think it helps almost tie the flow of the game together as one. Like, it's not sort of like, okay, you do this level and then there's a boss battle, you do this level, then there's a boss battle at the end of it. It's just kind of all encompassing, all one freeform thing that takes place. Like, I need to get off saying that. I never had an issue with it. I think the idea of kind of repeating that pattern is quite an old school kind of gaming thing anyway. You know, you learn what the boss does, you avoid that, you work out how you're gonna damage them, you do that 3 times, which is the magic number in gaming, and then you win. So while there's nothing really stand out, it's never something I've kind of thought, oh, that was kind of a letdown, a weak point of the game.
Yeah, I'm with you, Chip. But I think I was also I didn't know that there was a section of the internet, I guess, or even outside of that felt that the boss battles sucked as such. But I guess because I'd never really considered it, I don't necessarily even think of them as, other than like Poison Ivy and you've got the Titan Joker, the other, and Bane, and then everything's Titans really for the most part. But yeah, there's Poison Ivy, but like Killer Croc and Scarecrow, they don't really play like boss battles, but they stand out.
Yeah, they do.
So
I wasn't including those in the boss battle.
No. And I guess it depends on, again, if you do or don't include those anyway. I never really thought that it was to its detriment as such. It never stood out to me as being really bad. They just never stood out to me. The Titan stuff never stood out to me as being really great either. It just felt like kicking butt as Batman all the way along. Flapping. That gets increasingly more difficult as you get through, but only because of volume generally of henchmen.
They're not bad, like, it's just they don't feel like a payoff. Like a boss battle feels like it should be like a crescendo, whereas these feel just like Chip said, it's more of a flaw, which that's just like my personal preference for boss battles should be this is the big explosion of action. Like, then you kind of dip back down and get back into the groove again.
At least there's nothing as disappointing as Arkham Knight and how that ends.
Oh, I'm not.
That's awful.
No, we're not talking about fucking Arkham Knight.
No, I know, but just like in terms of like, you know, boss battles that are a letdown.
No
The
spoilers.
fucking end boss of that game
No spoilers.
is may or may not be very good.
No,
It's not very good.
Covered
There's
there.
a reason that I've not finished that game. It's because I find it highly unplayable.
Yeah.
Tedious.
Arkham City's got a lot of good boss battles.
Yeah, I love the boss
Yes.
battles in Arkham City. I think they really force you to assess more so than the Titan battles in Asylum. I think, you know, when you think of like fighting Dr. Freeze or Hugo Strange, they're really cool ways of like Andy said, they're sort of more tied into the character that you're fighting as opposed to just being a boss battle, which makes a difference.
It's the creamy middle of the games for boss battles.
The what?
I didn't
The
like
creamy
that.
middle.
Oh, okay. I
No.
thought that's what you said, and I was hoping it would be something different.
You're the editor, so you won't even cut that bit out. That's the problem here.
Speaking of boss battles, there's one sort of main niggle I have with this game that I've always had.
But isn't the doors?
There isn't the doors. The
Okay.
doors is more of a fascination rather than a niggle. But so one of the characters is obviously Harley Quinn, and for the sort of first half of the game, she's almost like the secondary antagonist. You know, you're the one trying to find her because she's got hold of. First she has Gordon, and then she has the warden, doesn't she?
Yeah.
And for me, it always feels like you're building up to a big battle with Harley, which would be really cool. And then you end up just fighting a bunch of henchmen on an electronic floor while she kind of trolls you in the background. And also the way the game treats her is kind of like there's one line that I always, every time I hear it in this game, it's like, Arr! It's when Batman says Harley never was that bright. And I'm like, she has a PhD, dude. Like, they're really hard to get. Like, they don't just hand them out like candy. And I think the game diminishes, it builds her up to be an antagonist and to be one of the foes you faced, and then just doesn't do anything with her. And obviously she's become such a popular character since, and you know, she was gaining in popularity at the time. But I just wanted to know how you guys feel about Harley in the game, and like, you know, I feel like she should have got a boss battle, like she was ready for it, and they just sort of left her.
Well, can I ask you like a devil's advocate kind of question? Because I agree with you
Go for it.
completely, and everything you said. But do you feel like Harley wasn't as well represented in any of the media, or has kind of we wanted her to be represented up until that point anyway? So the game just didn't do the thing of kind of you know, pushing her to that level.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. And I think that it probably is the case that she wasn't quite as well known or as popular widely as she probably is now. But also I think like the game itself kind of contradicts itself in what it's doing with her. So, you know, with having her as, you know, you're chasing her, you're following her around. And when you think like for Killer Croc, you go into his lair and you have to face him, sort of. Or
it's a whole encounter.
yeah, it's not just she's in a room while you fight a bunch of dudes and she controls what floor you're on.
Then you just dump her in a cell like that. She's no threat at all.
Yeah, and
it never treats her like a physical threat.
and the fight with her is a cutscene.
Yeah.
And I think the game contradicts itself in what it's doing with Harley, rather than if you ignore all the other media and what she's come to represent as a character around the game. I think the game itself doesn't know what to do with her.
Well, I was going to say, I think one of the things that I find interesting, because I thought about it more, certainly since you know, we spoke about it briefly before, Becky, you and I, first thing to consider would obviously be that Harley Quinn, I mean, she didn't even have her own title comics at the time, so she certainly didn't have like that autonomous personality that she does now in the comics, and she absolutely is one of my favourite comic book characters currently in the DC slate from a comics perspective, and has been for a couple of years. She was very much attached to Joker at the time. I do think that the game brought her into the forefront of pop culture generally because of the new design that they gave her. That was different to the animated series, because of course she was introduced in the animated series rather than in the comics, so it was one of the characters that was the other way around. I think they don't know what to do with her. I do wonder how much of it though as well was, so the only other boss battle you have with a female character is Poison Ivy, and it's very much at a distance. Whereas with Harley, you could have only done it as a physical combat, and you have to wonder how much of that was just, did the developers maybe not know how to approach having Batman beat up Harley Quinn and you be playing Batman at the time. So I wonder if that's where that contradiction comes from, because I do think that, she absolutely is a secondary antagonist, and she very much drives the first half of the game forward. Your interactions are more with her than with the Joker, but there is that bit of the flip side of that coin is that you play as Batman beating Harley Quinn up when she would be a physical threat in the sense of, because she's very acrobatic, but I think it's, it's been proven time and time and time again, even currently in the comics, is that, and in the new animated series that she has and things like that, Batman obviously is still physically more powerful. He just is, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, they could have designed a level, like a boss battle, where they don't have to get physical, like they did with Poison Ivy. There would have been a way to do it where she was at a distance, but still
there would have been,
danger.
but I think it would have been a lot harder because of the type of character that she is. And that's just me. I'm not necessarily defending it. I'm just coming at it from maybe a different perspective of, part maybe not wanting to do that.
No, I think it's a really interesting point. And I do think it's something that a lot of superhero stories have to contend with when there is a male hero versus a female antagonist, and vice versa as well. I think it's just a shame because they go so far and just kind of fall at the last hurdle. And obviously female representation in games anyway is a whole other topic, and one we're not going to get into now because we'll be here forever. But it was just interesting to me that it's the one thing that they don't quite seem to be able to solve in the story.
How did you feel about the DLC in City?
I still haven't done it.
Okay. That's one. Was one of the things I was going to say is that she does get her DLC as she's more of a threat in that. Obviously, I'm not going to spoil it for you when you get to it, but but then it's a Robin DLC rather than a Batman one. So I think that's, it kind of pits the sidekick against the sidekick in that kind of universe, But I think they do it. It's not perfect, but they do it. She is more of a threat in that, at least.
Yeah, I will get there.
Yeah, in Arkham Knight, like, Harley's got a bit more of her own, like, drive and agenda, because obviously she's on her own at that point. But, like, even then, you still don't get a boss battle. She's just a more strong presence throughout the story. It's just that the story is largely a complete fucking mess. Yes.
Yeah, let's rag on Knight some more. I enjoy that.
Yeah.
And just on the Harley Quinn thing as well, I just want to say that Arlene Sorkin is amazing, and like the character, or the way she brings that character to life is like just amazing. From the animated series to the game, she is absolutely brilliant.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that's further emphasises the kind of disappointment, I think, from my side. Like,
yeah, because it was written by one of the animated series creators, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, so, and like obviously Harley Quinn's their creation, so it was just a little disappointing that they didn't find more to do with it, but it might have been a call from the developers or something that they didn't want to use her too much.
Yeah. And I think Sasha's right as well. The optics of it will definitely have come into play.
Yeah, intergender violence would be a bit.
Yeah, especially given...
Considering how big Batman is in this game, he's gigantic.
Yeah.
It wouldn't look very nice. It's probably more fair for him just to like grab her and like throw her across the room than like having him, because the way he punches people, it like...
Yeah.
If he punched me like that, my soul would just evaporate out of my body like a steam.
He is a large boy.
I'd just like crumple to the ground like just a pile of flesh.
Chunky Batman.
And just on your little way you said about how he says that Harley isn't very bright, aside from the fact that someone said something similar about me recently, about not being bright.
Don't be bringing Fall Guys talking. Oh,
I'm not bringing Fall Guys. No, but what I would say is that she has always had that interesting. I can't think of the right word. Maybe it's dichotomy, but that she's extremely intelligent, but also, and it's a weird character to relate to. I will say that the idea of that. Generally speaking, obviously, like I say, to get a PhD, she's hella smart. but she does completely fall for the Joker's BS.
And just to praise Birds of Prey for a second, because I adore that film, but one of my favourite aspects of it was how she'd just snap into psychologist mode and she'd diagnose people as she was talking to them. I really loved that detail. That was a really fun detail.
I will say, like, Batman saying she's not that smart, I felt that kind of fits Batman's character. He probably read a couple of books on psychology and now he just thinks he knows more.
So he's...
Batman
is sexist,
Batman
confirmed.
is a reply
Batman's
guy.
planning.
So, obviously, we've spent quite a bit of time on Harley now, and we've already mentioned Killer Croc and Scarecrow. So, I think now's the time to delve into how the game uses the Rogues Gallery, and what we think about that. Because the Scarecrow levels are really, really cool. I think they're one of my favourite aspects of the game.
God.
I'm terrible at them. And for some reason, like, whenever I want Batman to crouch, he just doesn't. So I get spotted a lot.
But his knees are playing up, you know. He's been
Yeah,
in for a long time.
fucking, the canon backs me up here.
So yeah, how does everyone else feel about Scarecrow?
I loved how they used him. Not necessarily the Scarecrow levels. I mean, I did enjoy them. And they were really well designed. I just liked the way they used Scarecrow to, like, tell the story in different ways. Like how they let you explore Batman's psyche. Like the part where he's walking down the corridor and suddenly it starts shifting into the alleyway. And you start to... It's an inventive way to, like, explore Batman's survivor's guilt and all the things that are constantly playing on his mind that he tries to kind of push down in order to be Batman, but it's always there driving him. And it's something you can't really do in a game unless you're doing, like, flashbacks or a really inorganic, like, monologue. It's like a nice visual way to tell Batman's story, and it fits the character of Scarecrow.
Yeah, and it's the sort of the strongest bit of character work in the game as well. You don't really delve into the Bruce Wayne side of things much outside of the Scarecrow moments.
Yeah, it like humanises Batman, but, like, without having to take a break from the story that's being told. It's a nice way of, like, letting you in on Batman and Bruce Wayne without, like, veering off, like, course completely.
Can we also just shout out very briefly how fucking scary it is when you first enter the first Scarecrow level? Like,
Just what I was going to say. Oh, man.
Like...
Talk about heebie-jeebies.
Yeah. The first time you play that game and you have no idea what the Scarecrow levels even are. Stepping into that... It's one of the mortuaries, isn't it? I think.
It's the morgue,
It's
yeah.
the first one?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, because there's the body bags on the gurneys.
Yeah. And like the whole time I was stepping through it and I'm like, oh, this is giving me like real bad vibes. Like
Even when you know it's coming as well, like even replaying it, it still got me. I was still like, oh, this is really creepy. I have pooped my pants again, and I know it's happening.
Yep. It's rough. It's great. It's great. They're great levels. I'm with you, Becky. I love them. But I find that whenever I replay it now, I'm entering really slowly because I'm like, oh.
Yeah, you know when they're...
Oh, we're here.
Like, with all the Scarecrow levels, like, you know when they're hitting, and I remember walking for the corridor one, like, starting to walk down the corridor and just being like, oh, do I have to? Like, this is horrible. Because it's when the game really embraces the horror element of it. Like, the rest is kind of that sort of low-key gothic horror where it's not very scary, it's just all a bit grim. But the Scarecrow levels really, like, no, we're going to ramp up the sound design, we're going to make this guy scream in your ear, and we'll do all the, like, lots of nice corpses reanimating themselves and mortuary doors flapping. Scary. Don't like them.
Always comes back to the doors, doesn't it? Always comes back to the doors.
I just got a door thing, alright?
Yeah.
Do the corpses open the doors weird, or...?
No, they don't open the doors, Chip. They're dead.
Why would a dead
now you've
person
got
open
common
a
sense
door?
about it.
That's just daft. Another different kind of scary with the Scarecrow things is the glitch, where, like, the game looks like it's crashed, and then suddenly you're back at the start of the game. I remember that first time it happened to me. I freaked out. I thought, oh no, what's happened to the game? And then I noticed everything had changed, and then it replays the opening. But you're Joker, and you're following Batman being taken at the asylum. I absolutely loved that, even if it gave me a heart attack the first time it happened.
It's like they're two sides of the same coin, everyone.
It's like, fuck no, what's happened? I'm not playing all this all over again. It's not quite as scary as Killer Croc, but...
Nice segue.
Yeah.
It's
Killer
a
Croc.
different kind of scary.
Yeah, like heart in your mouth, terrified, oh my god, I'm gonna die scary. I hate the Killer Croc level.
Yeah. That's the scary I'm not great at, as you guys know. Like, the panic really does set in at that point. You've got to have the reaction times.
You're so calm under pressure, Chip.
Thank you, and I am Batman, so...
Cosplay Batman.
But I feel like even non-cosplay Batman, I think, shit himself doing that.
Yeah.
It's a really cool mechanic, though, as well, because there's the heart rate. No, it's not the heart rate. It's the...
It's the ripples on the water.
Yeah.
As you're walking, yeah. It's really clever. Horrible, but really clever.
I got lost playing it as well.
Oh no.
You know, like when you get to the crossroad, the little junctions, and it's like you can go left or right to get back to wherever it is you need to go, and I'm like, I can't remember, because I feel like Chip and I are on a very similar level with panic in scary game things.
Yeah.
I just fly into blind panic in those levels and I'm like, oh, it's gonna get me. And like,
which is good because I just freeze, so it balances out nicely.
So as long as you're
Just
together
like,
when you're
just
both
take
scared, like it might work.
Yeah.
Maybe.
No, we've played enough Phasmophobia to know it doesn't work.
I think the thing, like, I say love, I begrudgingly like about the Killer Croc levels is the way they use the sound design for letting, obviously you've got the sound vibrations of the water, but also like the noise of him coming up out of the water, like, and trying to work out where he's coming from, and you're like, I can hear him, I can't see him, where is it? Oh, I'm dead. Okay.
You immediately prepare your batarang. Oh, here we fucking go.
Yeah, here it is. And the way they use the music as
Come
well.
at me, you big dickhead. Let's go.
am I remembering there's two? Is there two Killer Croc levels? Or is it just the one?
No, it's just the one. It's just really
one.
long.
It's a long one.
It just feels like it goes on forever. Yeah.
Because you have to do that sort of walk slow, don't you, across the panels, so you don't like disturb them, and
yeah.
that just like draws it out even more.
Then the second section is when you're running away from him, and like everything's exploding behind you, and like you have to make sure you don't fuck up a turn or anything like that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of split into two different phases.
And you're collecting the
sort of
the
like
plants.
a boss battle.
You're collecting the plants for the anti-Titan serum, I think.
Yeah, the very inventively named anti-Titan.
Yeah,
serum.
that one. So that bit, like, I remember, because you've got that little like test tube where it fills up with all the samples that you're collecting, and I remember it getting really near the top and being like, oh my god, I'm done. And then it's like, one more. I'm like, no, I want this to be over.
I like the Killer Croc section. Like, works really well for me because, like we say, it fits the context of the character. It encourages stealth rather than combat. It's like it's testing a different part of the game. Unlike the other boss battles are all about combat and testing how good you are at that system. So Killer Croc's a good way of doing that with stealth, kind of like the Victor Zaz encounters, which aren't quite as like involved, but they're still testing how good you are at sneaking around.
It flips that fear dynamic as well that we were talking about earlier with the stealth things, where you're terrorizing the henchmen, but in this one it's very much that like you're the one panicking, you're the one like, terrified. Batman's probably very calm.
I was say, not the way I played him. He was screaming as he was running away. Alfred, help me!
I think the only one we haven't actually mentioned at all throughout this whole thing so far is the Riddler and his many trophies.
Why must you taunt me with the 8 I haven't got?
Yeah, I'm missing 8 as well, and I don't know where they are, and it's really annoying me.
Well, yeah, we complain, but it is a brilliant component of the game.
Yeah,
like it's one of my favourite, as far as world building and things like that go. It's like a really nice way of adding that extra layer to the game without breaking the reality of the game.
Yeah, I really love the Easter eggs that you pick up for the riddles, solving riddles, where you find like Two-Face's cell, and Scarecrow's secret plans. And then my favourite is Clayface. I love
I love Clayface.
like the first time I saw that, I could not work out what was going on, because I realised it was Clayface, but I was like, what is it? Like, why is this happening? And then realised it was part of the riddle. But I just stood there like looking at this guy like, what is going on?
I like how that used the detective mode vision. When if you turn to that, you just see there's no skeleton inside the guy. Like, it kind of flipped what you were used to with that type of that mechanic.
Yeah.
So, oh, there's no skeleton. Yeah, okay. Yes, he's made of clay, obviously.
I feel sorry for him though, because he's like the only one who didn't get out. Like,
he's not invited.
Yeah, he's just sort of sat there like, all right, I'll just change shapes for a bit. I'll make my own fun.
Sorry, Clayface.
I feel like if you were Clayface, that is what you'd do, though, right?
Yeah,
yeah, I'd do it all the time.
Oh yeah.
I just try and unnerve people, like, the duck soup sequence. Like, just try and do that with someone. That would be great fun.
I mean, I'd try that, but I'd still be out of sync with them. I'm not doing this well.
Yeah, but half the fun.
I'd try and see if I can make a pot out of myself.
Of course you would.
None of that surprises me.
Doing the
you're gonna climb into a kiln and try and
Sorry, I've got a very peculiar image in my head now.
Of Chip as a cup.
Is it me but made out of pots?
No, but it's the ghost scene. The Patrick Swayze Demi Moore with the
Unchained Melody.
I don't volunteer to do this to Chip.
No. Wait, hang on though. Who is Patrick Swayze in this scenario? I don't
Patrick
know.
Swayze.
I feel like I'm more of a Demi Moore, to be honest.
I've often thought that about you.
I know, I give off that energy.
And I'm just spinning around going, well, this is awkward.
It's just me on my own, like, I'm Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore just vibing with myself, and Chip's just feeling very uncomfortable through the entire thing.
Getting dizzy.
So, please stop. Please stop. I've changed my mind.
Hands on me.
I don't want to be a
Two
pot
of them
anymore.
are dead.
You're gonna be a pot.
I don't think the pot is the focus of that scene.
It is. It is to me. It's my motivation.
I feel
I
like
don't know what you're talking about.
I feel like the pot is very much the focus of that scene.
You brought the fucking pot, so it's on you that this is happening now.
Yeah, this is
What, that I'm being felt up by a dead man?
Not to victim blame, but yeah,
fictive.
you did bring this up.
I'm just an innocent lump of clay.
I mean, you are squandering an incredible power. So I just want to be a pot.
And today I'll
You can be anybody you
want.
want. I'm going to be a blob of clay.
Before we get too off topic,
Too late.
I wanted. Oh God, I can't even cut all this out.
Not really, because you brought it up.
Yeah.
Again.
I just said I wanted to see if I could be a pot, and then it went places.
It was always going to go places. You know what we're like.
Yeah. Well, to rope it back, to lasso it back in, with the Riddler trophies, I say I agree with you guys. Like, I love them and I hate them at the same time. And there was one trophy, and I think this is City, so it's not really on topic, but more so than Demi Moore feeling up a pot. There was one trophy. I was playing the game with a friend, and we were just sort of milling about trying to get as many of the trophies as we could. And we literally spent 6 hours on one Riddler
Is it
trophy.
The pipe one?
Yeah, with the remote controlled batarang. And we try, and I don't know, when you just get into that zone where you're like, I have to do this. I can't look myself in the eye in the mirror if I don't do this.
Yeah.
And when we eventually did it, because it's one of those ones where you have to throw it, you have to hit some electricity, then swing it back, then get it through a pipe, and then because the controls are weirdly inverted as well, and it just throws you off at the last second. When I finally got that trophy, I flopped to the floor, I crawled through his flat, into the bathroom and crawled into the bath and just laid there like I was just done. It was like, this is where I live now. I've achieved what I need to achieve in this lifetime, and it's over.
Thank you for that insight into your personal trauma,
Yeah.
I guess.
Well, it's either that or be a pot.
Neither. Both seem to be something you should be bringing up to a professional. But
Yeah, as a reminder.
If anything's come out of this podcast is the amount of professional help
Yes,
you will need.
agreed. We did have a question on the Riddler trophies. So from friend of the podcast, Andrew Fox McKay, otherwise known as Foxy. When Riddler just leaves a trophy somewhere with no challenge required to access it, what's going through his head?
He's just phoning it in, isn't he, really? So, I've done so much fucking work in this place for no apparent reason. I'll just put it in a...
I like to think he's just run out of budget, because there's some really elaborate ones that he must have spent a lot of time and money on. He's like, fuck it, I'll just stick this one behind a flower.
My favourite one's
this one's going up this one's going on a shelf. Fuck it. I've done so much work all day. I've been walking around this place taking notes on different riddles. I'm just going to put this one on the corner. Fuck it.
Yeah, I really love the one that's just on the jetty. It's just like, yeah, I'm just hanging out.
He's like, yeah, it's what over there.
He went there for a smoke break and went, fuck it. There we go.
I like to think it's some sort of like psych out thing that he's doing, that he would want Batman to overthink the fact that he's making it too easy.
I like that.
He does that though, doesn't he? Like he keeps taunting Batman whenever after you've solved a certain amount of puzzles. He's like, oh, they're the easy ones.
Yeah.
He starts getting a bit narky about like Batman doing a good job, even though it's the entire reason he's doing it, so Batman can solve stuff. So, oh, you're solving them, are you? Fucking Billy Big Bollocks. Those are all the easy ones.
That was a great impression of the Riddler.
Yeah, I did audition for Harley Quinn.
Such a shame that Paul Dano got it instead.
Yeah, I'm very upset.
No.
And Chip just showed up like sat in a pot. Said, "Hey guys, I'm Clayface."
Anyway,
from the fan casting to something.
To the actual casting of the game. Segue.
Hey! Fucking hell, we are good at this now.
I just did finger guns at the computer. Oh my god.
I feel like we undo that we undo the work. We undo the work of the pro segue when we then congratulate ourselves for a solid 90 seconds afterwards.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit.
It was a great
This is still early days. Like we just
we'll take the wins where we get them.
We'll get tired of being we'll get tired of being good eventually.
Again, all of that is staying in.
Yes, it better had.
So anyway, segue.
I want people to know I'm impressed with myself and Becky and I guess you guys as well.
Oh, to be an afterthought. Segue.
Yeah, how are you going to segue from the segue into the to the
I don't
subject
even
now?
Speaking of segues,
Sasha, I'm amazed that you managed to wrangle this in our last episode. Hosting is hard work with you guys. It's like wrestling jelly.
Speaking of wrestling jelly,
The cast.
The cast.
No, I changed my mind. I'm going to cut all that out and just go from Andy going, speaking of wrestling jelly.
I'm fine with that. It wouldn't surprise people, probably. So what are we talking about again? Oh, the cast. Yes.
Please.
Good cast.
It's a very good cast.
Best cast.
Yes.
Cool, well that's that bit done.
That was worth all that. Like, oh my god, the segue took longer than the section. Okay. I mean, honestly though, what more can you say? Like, it's the best Batman, it's the best Joker. Like, no one's ever going to do
jelly.
It's the best wrestling with jelly.
What the fuck is wrestling jelly?
Difficult.
It's difficult, is what it is.
It's a simile.
Right. I thought it was like a thing. I thought it was like,
It's not some...
here comes the jelly.
What?
It's the main event of WrestleMania.
God.
I'm worried about what's happening.
I don't even know how to bring this back.
It's all right, I'll put that sting in right here and then we'll just go from fresh again, don't worry.
Can I
Segue!
recover for a minute then?
Yeah, you can, yeah.
So speaking of things that are short, the plot.
Oh.
The plot of the game. Because there's actually quite a simple plot.
It's not. It doesn't get in the game's way. It's very much just a justification for everything that happens. It's one of the problems with the sequels. They get too involved in the nitty gritty, whereas Batman Arkham Asylum is very much just here you are, here's the end point.
Yeah, because when I was trying to write the summary for the beginning of the podcast to just like do a brief plot, I was like, the Joker takes over the asylum and you have to get it back. And that's pretty much it.
There's like a monster growing serum, and that's about
Yeah.
the only thing that runs through the entire thing. Because like a lot of the characters are kind of connected to that serum. Like Bane is changed by it. Poison Ivy's mad about it.
And then weirdly on board with it when her plants go crackers.
I personally really think there's a lot to be said for how focused the structure is of this game.
Yeah, definitely.
I love how focused and linear and snappy it is, because it really doesn't. When you get to, it doesn't matter how many times I play it. When I get to the end of it, I'm always like, oh man, like that went a lot quicker than I thought every single time, and it is just so focused. And I think it does a really, really cracking job of taking something that's very well trodden, which is Batman. I mean, by that point, by the time this game was coming out, Batman was already well on his way to being incredibly well trodden in popular culture. And it still felt brand new. It felt like a telling on a non-comic media of Batman that we'd just not really seen previously. And I know that there's a lot of arguments that City is better because it improves on, the combat and the stealth and basically most of the mechanics, but I still prefer this one.
Yeah, the City story is very busy.
Yeah.
It's like I prefer the simplicity of Asylum a lot more.
It's quite nice to play something that focused as well and not have to worry about different subplots of things going on, because I remember that in City I would get distracted by things going on elsewhere and sort of lose the main thread of the story, whereas this one there are no other threads, so it's quite nice to just pummel your way through the plot, really. Yeah,
it's very propulsive, like whereas City is a little cluttered and Night is just downright fucking meandering. So,
yes, rag on Night some more.
And I don't remember enough about Origins to rag on that, so.
I had the same with Bash. Like when I replayed it, it kind of almost caught me by surprise. Like I think what you said as well, Becky. Like you get to a point, you're like, "Oh my god, I'm here already! Like what happened?" And I played it last summer after I'd finished playing The Witcher 3. So that went from like a 250-hour plus game to like this really lovely, like pretty linear 8 hours, and it was just such a breath of fresh air. And I know video games are so expensive nowadays, so you kind of want to feel like you get your money's worth. But, when you see things like, I think we touched upon this last episode as well, like maps that have so many places to visit, side quests, pickups, secrets, it can get really overwhelming and you kind of lose your place within that story, and it waters it down, I think, sometimes. So it's just so nice to have a game like this that, if you paid 70, 80 quid for it now, you'd probably be maybe slightly disappointed at the length, but at the time, and even replaying it now, it was just brilliant. I just absolutely loved playing this game, and running around trying to find a few of the extra secrets and the trophies, but as a narrative and a story, I think it's perfect. I think it like you say, it doesn't outstay its welcome. It is what it is. It's there, and there's very little wrong with it.
Yeah, on the length, it is very short time-wise, but it's a very densely used time.
Yes.
Like, there's a lot to do in that short space of time. You're not spending a lot of time wandering. Like, if you're playing like an Ubisoft fucking open world game, you'd be spending like hours just wandering the map trying to find something to do, and it wouldn't be rewarding when you got there. Arkham Asylum, you walk into a room, there's like a dozen Riddler things to solve, there's a stealth component or a combat part. You don't feel like you've wasted your time.
Oh, absolutely. And there's enough Batmaning between, the set pieces, between the
big
the
parts.
beats, the story beats. There's enough time that you can, flap around, if you me.
Through some doors.
Yeah, if that's your jam.
Test your knees.
Do some squats.
But also
recreate a scene from Ghost.
It's that thing where it's quick, but it also it's so densely packed with things and stuff, and there's like a real whiplash to the tone as well. Like, we've kind of touched on it, but you've got those really creepy, horrible Scarecrow type, you know, dream sequences. You've got just the outright horror of Killer Croc. And then you've got your more just classic, I think certainly like what early aughts combat games were doing. Although, you know, I think this did the best job of any of them. But, you know, your Titans and you're beating the people up. And I think that, but there is a lot of tonal whiplash through that through the game. I tell you what, with me, and every time I have played it, because whenever I play it, I always play it relatively quickly. Not maybe in a weekend, like I did the first time, or less than 24 hours, but like pretty quick. Again, when you actually look and go, oh, it's like an 8-hour game, yeah, in 24 hours doesn't seem unreasonable, but that was, you know what I mean. It has, though, that whenever I'm playing it, I'm always like, oh, one more level, one more bit. Like when you get your next thing to do, it's like, oh, I'll just do that bit. It manages to pull all of that off with, when you take that step back, the most basic of stories. And I think it's because it showcases all of the best of Batman and of that kind of game for the time.
And on paper, it's a game that doesn't sound like it should work. You know, one of the things we picked up on all the way through the podcast, the tonal whiplash, how packed it is, you know, the different elements of all the different styles of Batman down the years. You know, it's a real mashup of all of these things, and usually they can feel heavy or cluttered or like weirdly self-referential, but it just works, it just is, and that's quite a feat for a game to pull off.
Yeah, it feels like a celebration of Batman rather than just like a lot of fan service.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, obviously it is fan service, but it feels like it all fits together. Nothing stands out like a sore thumb. It all kind of just blends together perfectly. So it just feels like a complete experience.
And I reckon as well that it probably, you don't see a lot of negativity about it, even now. And you didn't at the time. From die-hard Batman fans to people who had not really had, you know, aside from glancing at it in pop culture, because it very much was a pop culture by then, and obviously still is.
Yeah, it's like basically 20 years of pop culture at that point.
Yeah, like, well, even like from 60s Batman, but I think one of the things as well that it seems to have done really well, like, it has united whatever kind of Batman fan you are. Like, however you like your Batman, it seems to have united that.
Grilled.
Jesus Christ.
I just mean, like, you genuinely just don't see anyone being like, that's not my Batman. Or, you know, like, and maybe it's just because I don't see that, but then again, a game this old that's still this much, very much beloved, and it is featuring a character that obviously has got, like, coming up to, 80 years, possibly more now, of history, and yet people still go back to this game. I mean, you know, when I was doing research for this, I was finding articles from, like, literally just last year. People still laying praise on it. It really stands the test of time, not just from how it looks, not just from how it plays, but I think because it actually is that penultimate Batman. I think it's the best one.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why it's like it was one of the first games we wanted to cover on this podcast, because it's just endured and it hasn't aged a bit.
I think it was the first one we mentioned, wasn't it, when we started talking about this? It was like, yeah, we have to cover Arkham Asylum. So
yeah, I think it was one of the first, because it's just one of those games that we all love, like, just as much as each other. There's no one kind of lagging behind, a little less enthusiastic. We were all equally enthusiastic about talking about Arkham Asylum. And like when the Avengers came out, people were complaining that it wasn't on the Arkham or Spider-Man level. That's like the standard of what you want from a superhero game now, because before Arkham Asylum, we had a lot of very bad Batman games, a lot of very bad superhero games in general, and Arkham showed what happens when a developer really cares about the source material and wants to make it work in this new medium. Whereas a lot of other games are just like, oh, we've got the Batman license, let's just slap Batman on a side-scrolling platform game or something. This is a game that actually cared about Batman, and it resonates, and it changed the standards for a superhero game.
That leads me quite nicely to my next question, actually. So this also came from Twitter, and this is from Red and Blue Dave. He says, would you like to see more Arkham games in the series, or is it done now?
I mean, we're getting Gotham Knights like next year or something, or it might be this year, I can't remember. Time doesn't mean anything anymore. But I mean, that's from Warner Bros. Montreal, so that's kind of like a continuation of what they started with Arkham Origins. But that seems to be like, if you want a Batman Arkham style game, that seems to be where to go for that. Whereas Rocksteady are going to be doing Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League, which is set in the Arkham universe. So like they're continuing Arkham, but they're going to do it in a new way. So that's what I'd rather have. Because after Arkham Knight, I don't see how you can improve on what Arkham Asylum did without just adding too many things. Like you're putting a hat on a hat on a hat.
It's a lot of hats.
And I feel like that's a lot of hats. Or a pot that's made out of chip. And
a chip pot.
yeah, I'd rather they do something. They take like that universe is perfect. I want to go back to that universe, but I want to go there in a new way, which is what I'm thinking we're going to get with Suicide Squad.
I'm really looking forward to Suicide Squad. It looks a lot of fun. I think I agree with you, Andy. Like, I would be happy for more adventures in that universe, possibly using some of the characters. Like, I really enjoyed playing as Catwoman in City, and it would be quite fun to have a Catwoman game, though hopefully they can sort out the way her hips move, because no woman's hips move like that on a continuous basis. You know, you talk about Batman's knees having arthritis, like, there's no way that woman's not going to have a hip replacement before she's 50.
It's just careless stuff going on.
Yeah, just
Rocksteady.
look after your joints, people. But yeah, I think I'd love to explore some of the other corners of that universe, as Suicide Squad looks to be doing, rather than revisit the Arkham games. I think I can't get into Night at all. I really enjoyed City. City was the first one I played, so I'll always have a soft spot for that one. But you're just not going to beat it at this stage, so expand rather than retread.
Yeah, and I think as well, the other thing, within the Gotham universe, there's so many interesting characters that you can get behind and do something with. Even within the Bat Fam, I would love something that that featured the full Bat Fam.
That's kind of what Gotham Knights is going to be doing. Taking, obviously Batman's not going to be involved, but all of the Bat family are going to be taking over and teaming up and stuff. But that's not really, it's going to be sort of like Arkham, but it's going to be more open, hopefully less like Arkham Knight and more like Arkham City.
Why is it every new game that comes out, all you hear is open world? Everything's going to be more open world. No.
Yeah.
Give me linear.
Justify the budgets.
Oh god, are you going back to picketing now?
Yes. Give me a linear story. Give me a nice, snappy 10, 12-hour game that has a clear path that I can follow, that I don't have to get lost in and just go, I don't know where I am. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know why I'm doing it. No.
This is the second episode in a row where Sasha's gone on a rant about open world games.
It's going to be a regular feature.
And our next episode's about a fucking open world game.
Yep.
Wait till we get to the fourth one.
Oh, God.
What I would like to see, rather than a new game, is I'd like to see DC or Warner Brothers adapt, or at least be inspired by the world of Arkham Asylum in terms of their film output.
Ooh.
I love the Nolan films, and the Matt Reeves one looks really interesting as well. But they're really super serious and grounded in this world. Although, to be fair, we don't know for sure that the Reeves film is, but just judging by that little trailer, it seems like it's going to be that super serious, grounded in reality kind of Batman as well. So I'd like to see them take that that larger than life approach that Arkham has, where it takes these comic booky characters and makes them serious, but it has elements of that fantastic as well. And it blends those styles, and I think it would work on the big screen.
Batman Returns is very out there when you look back at it.
Yeah, but what's that, 91 or something?
92. Yeah. They got scared of that after Joel Schumacher, so they stopped wanting to go big.
What I was about to say as well. Definitely, I think that kind of anything that gets away from that reality base and they just panic and they think, oh my god, it's a campy Schumacher film that didn't do very well. So I think they kind of steer away from that. But I think if you had the solid writing that they have on Asylum, I think that would be perfect for the big screen, and I'd really like to see them adapt something like that as opposed to a new game.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
I agree. Yeah.
I would just like to state on the record though that I love Batman Forever. Just of the Schumacher.
Me too.
Batman Forever is really
I'm
good.
with you.
Ones. Yeah. Cool. Okay, glad we're on the same page there.
Yeah, it's like Batman. Like the first Tim Burton Batman was kind of held back. Then Batman Returns went full Burton. Same thing with Batman Forever. It's you can see the elements of Schumacher, and then Batman Forever just goes. No, I mean Batman and Robin goes full Schumacher.
Full bat nipples.
Oh, that's too much Schumacher.
It's way too much Schumacher. I mean, I admire it.
R.I.P.
It swings for the fences, and then leaves everything behind. Cool. Okay, so any final thoughts on Arkham Asylum before we turn to our recommendations for this month?
Best Batman.
It's a lot better than Batman Arkham Knight.
Oh.
It's so stabbing yourself in the eyes.
So I'm guessing from this energy that none of us like Arkham Knight.
When it doesn't force me into a
tank
battle, I do like it. But then I hate it, so it's all over the place.
Yeah, I like the combat in it, but getting to there's a lot of good stuff, but getting there is an absolute fucking nightmare.
Okay, so to finish everything off then, we're going to go around and give our usual game-related recommendations for this month. So I'm happy to kick things off. I'm going old school. I'm going to recommend some tabletop RPG stuff. There's a company called Dice Goblin who do really cool dice sets. I bought one for the Strawberry set for me because of Strawberry Rampage and our GTA streams, if you've ever seen those. And also bought Chipper set, and they're really nice guys to deal with as well. They were really friendly. They are at Dice Goblin UK on Instagram, and they've got some really cool sets, and they're bringing out new ones all the time. So that's my recommendation for this month. Chip, you go next.
My recommendation for this month is Batman Arkham Asylum.
Oh!
We've already covered that, you fool.
The comic book.
Look at us cross-media.
God, what a wanky voice. Yeah, it's a comic book that I thought I owned but seemed to have misplaced. I knew it was going to be my recommendation for this because, on theme. But I couldn't actually find my copy, so I went out. Well, I didn't go out. I stayed in and I got the postman to come out and give me a copy. And I want to recommend that because it's written exactly 10 years before the game came out. It's by Grant Morrison, and it's kind of incredible. It shares very little with the actual game apart from the very, very basic premise in that the villains, the rogues, have taken over Arkham Asylum. It does deal with some of the backstory from Amadeus Arkham and how Arkham Asylum was built. It has little things like, when you find the journal entries from Amadeus throughout the game, and it kind of gives, there's like backstory there, and it has a picture of the beetle. In the comic, the beetles are used as a sign of rebirth. It's a section about that at the beginning. But to be honest, even if you don't like reading, the art by McKean is just incredible. Like, every panel is gorgeous. Every page is different because it represents kind of the characters that are on that screen at that time, and I would highly recommend it. It's just fantastic, so go out and read that. Even if you don't like comic books, if you just like looking at things, go and buy this and look at it.
Or borrow it.
Is
Yes.
that a hint, Sasha?
Oh, I already am.
Oh.
Borrowing it.
I had it in my hands for a day and then it was gone.
Yoink.
Really? Is that how
No,
long
I was
you
just
had
trying to be
it?
dramatic.
Oh, right, okay.
Andy, what's your recommendation for this month?
I'm recommending going on wish.com and searching for video game things. Because
Why?
it's fucking mental. You go on that, you just get about half a dozen Switches, which are actually just PSPs painted blue and red, and they've got contain 1,000 games, and they're fucking PlayStation games, or you'll get a miniature PlayStation knockoff that has Mario Maker on. They all have Mario Maker on apparently, which they won't, but and fake controllers which probably have bees inside or something because it's Wish.
Oh, Chip would like
I
this.
feel like you're recommending this because you got burnt recently on Wish.
No, I don't go on fucking Wish. I just go on it to look at stuff.
So your recommendation isn't to buy something?
No,
it's just
do
to
not
look
buy
at
anything off fucking Wish.
Okay,
just
all
look
right.
at it. Good God, please do not buy anything on Wish.
Okay, I'll just cancel that order.
So my recommendation is a book that I recently got, and I'm about halfway through, but it's super interesting anyway. It's called Reality is Broken, Why Games Make Us Better and How They Can Change the World, by Jane McGonigal. And it's non-fiction, surprisingly, from the name. It's looking at how, you know, the future is for gamers, basically. Apparently there's more than 31 million people in the UK that game. The average young person spends 10,000 hours gaming by the time they're 21.
Oh, I thought you were going to say in a year, and I was like, yep.
Yep, that's me.
So Jane McGonigal is a game designer, and, you know, basically the book is just like trying to challenge how, you know, people look at video games. Video games get a lot of bad press historically, and it seems to cycle every couple of years where, you know, it'll be, you know, video games cause active shooters, video games are causing violence, blah, 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 blah. And I guess what she's trying to pitch is actually 31 million is like almost, half the UK are gaming.
Mm.
And, you know, especially with studies starting to be done now on, you know, the psychology of gaming and how it actively can help with things like anxiety and things like that, calming people down and such. Yeah, it's a really interesting book. And I highly recommend it, and I can't believe that I hadn't pre-prepared that before.
No one knows that. No one knows that. That's all gone.
That I never said anything.
It's all gone.
Sasha was
They
very
don't
well
know.
prepared.
Speaking of things you want to borrow, though, I know you haven't let me enough reading material in the last few days.
Do you want to borrow it?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, no, that's
Can I
fine.
dibs it after Chip, please?
Thank you.
Yes, 100%.
And I want it after Becky.
Right, with the book, we'll go around the FSG. Let's agree that. But no, definitely, it's a really interesting read, and I'm quite keen to finish it. Like I say, I'm about 2/3 of the way through, but even without finishing it, I still think it's really interesting to read, you know, a really informed perspective as well, because she's a video game designer herself. And it's because it's quite modern. I didn't realise quite the extent of how big gaming was, and I suppose it's because a thing I don't always take into account is like mobile gaming and stuff.
Yeah.
But it still is a totally valid form of gaming, 100%. So that is my recommendation.
Cool.
Brilliant.
Very smooth. Loved it.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I think that's all from us this month, isn't it?
I think so. You got a lot from us this month. A lot.
A lot. Probably some of it you didn't want as well. So any Ghost fans, we're sorry.
All quality stuff.
Thanks everyone for listening. Please like, subscribe and review wherever you get your podcasts. We are on all podcast platforms now, I believe. Chip?
Yes.
Yes, you didn't sound sure. Yes? No.
No.
All the good ones,
Yeah, all the
anyway.
good ones.
If we're on it, it's a good one.
So thanks for listening, everyone. We'll be back next month when Chip is hosting, and we'll be talking about Spider-Man. So that's exciting.
Whoa.
You can find us on Twitter as well at OneUpPod, which is 1UPP odd, as we have now come to know it. Sorry about that. 1UPP odd.
God.
So please come follow us there. We're constantly posting things for people to look at. Some of it very silly, some of it serious. You can ask us questions. You might get answers on the podcast. Who knows? And thank you to everyone who asked us questions for this episode. It really helped. And it was really fun to answer. So thank you. Okay, everyone. Plug your social medias.
I am Bash at Demon Head on Twitter, on Twitch, and basically anywhere else you'd probably find social media or gaming media.
I am the Chip Thompson on Twitter, and you can find me on Twitch at Chip Thompson's Thumbs. And I'm not going to give you my address, so that's it for me.
You can find me at truly_defective on most social medias, I think.
You think, or
Yes,
you know?
most. I don't use most of them. I just use Twitter. Just follow me on Twitter. That's where all the good stuff is.
And I'm at Becky Graceley on Twitter. You can find me on Instagram as well. But for now, get a life, play video games.